cheerful signs. New reasons to believe America's economy is on the rebound. It could be a strong holiday shopping season. The Reagan shooting. Should John Hinckley be released temporarily, alone with his parents? His victims plead with the federal judge, don't let that happen. The Calling. National Guardsmen doing critical jobs in Iraq and Afghanistan, but leaving a big hole at home. Tonight, the view from one small town. And Outbreak. The flu virus hitting earlier and harder this year. What you should know about getting a flu shot.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. The numbers on the American economy keep coming in, and they keep coming up winners. The latest, in October, income was up, so were orders for big-ticket items, and new claims for unemployment benefits dropped. At the same time, the Federal Reserve surveyed its 12 regional banks and reported that in most parts of the country, sales were up and retailers were optimistic about the holiday shopping season. On the eve of Thanksgiving, more reasons to be thankful. Here's NBC's Ann Thompson.
From busier hotels in Manhattan to rising demand for building supplies in Atlanta, today the Federal Reserve painted a picture of a recovering economy.
The economy has turned the corner. We're seeing improved conditions pretty much across the country in many different industries. The economy is improving, and it's improving quickly.
The Fed survey of regional economies, called the Beige Book, is just one of several reports out today confirming the economy's gathering strength. In October, Americans' incomes rose a healthy 0.4%. Jobless claims fell to their lowest level in almost 3 years last week. And orders for big-ticket items, everything from airplanes to computers, jumped more than 3% last month. Fuel for optimism even among the nation's beleaguered manufacturers.
The job decline in manufacturing has seemed to begin to taper off. We hope that after the first of the year, we'll see some hiring in manufacturing for the first time in over 3 years.
In fact, the Fed reports the overall labor market once weak appears to have stabilized. And economist Mark Zandi says it should get better next year.
The job market's going to improve, but it's not going to come roaring back. And one of the reasons is businesses are going to be weighed down by these high and rising healthcare costs.
The only disappointment today was that Americans held on to their wallets in October and didn't spend any more money. A trend retailers hope ends this Friday. The decorations are up. The flyers are ready. Now all Denver store owner Kathy Messenger needs are customers.
We're seeing things turn around here, and we're hoping that it'll continue on through the following year. Oh, wonderful.
Working to profit from the new signs of strength in the economy. Ann Thompson, NBC News, New York.
And also wanted to let you know.
And Wall Street liked today's economic news, although trading was slow on the day before Thanksgiving. The Dow was up just under 16 points. NASDAQ was up 10 points on the day. It's now been more than 2 decades since John Hinckley Jr. shot President Reagan. Tonight, an emotional plea from Sarah Brady, the wife of another man whose life was changed forever that day. She strongly opposes a request from Hinckley's parents to take him out of the hospital on unsupervised visits. More on this story now from NBC's Justice Department correspondent, Pete Williams.
When John Hinckley shot President Reagan in 1981, the attack wounded Press Secretary Jim Brady, leaving him severely and permanently injured. Since then, Brady's wife, Sarah, has devoted her life to handgun control, and now she has come out strongly against the idea of letting Hinckley's parents take him out on visits away from the hospital, unsupervised by medical staff. He's now allowed supervised day trips in the Washington area. In a new letter to the judge, she says she and her husband would have no peace of mind at all in the future. He ruined Jim Brady's life once, she writes. We don't want him to do so again, either physically or emotionally. She questions releasing Hinckley into the control of his parents in their late 70s without absolute certainty he is well. Sheila Tate, former press secretary to Nancy Reagan, says the letter shows the depth of opposition to the visits.
Well, I think she wrote it because she sensed there was a very real possibility that he was going to start walking the streets, and that scares a lot of people.
Does it scare you?
Yes.
But doctors from the hospital treating Hinckley say he has sufficiently recovered from his mental illness to take the trips without danger to himself or others. Today, a hospital psychologist told the judge that while Hinckley is still defensive, guarded, and at times deceptive, that's no reason to stop moving forward with his treatment, including unsupervised visits. Mental health advocate John Faenza says Hinckley should be judged on his medical condition.
We need to look at the fact that he was found not guilty by reason of insanity, that is a legal action that's not meant to confine people for the rest of their lives.
The judge has signaled that the law leaves him little choice but to allow the unsupervised visits. The only question now seems to be under precisely what conditions. Pete Williams, NBC News at Federal Court in Washington.
Now to Iraq, where U.S. forces have arrested the wife and daughter of Saddam Hussein's number 2 man, General Izzat Ibrahim el-Duri. El-Duri is the king of clubs in the U.S. most wanted deck. The military believes that General el-Duri has been organizing attacks against coalition forces. And retired General Jay Garner, the man who first led the U.S. occupation, is criticizing the way his successor and the coalition are now handling post-war Iraq. Garner, who was removed from the job, told the BBC that the United States should have deployed more troops and should not have disbanded the Iraqi army. The peril is great, of course, for U.S. troops targeted by guerrilla fighters who look for ingenious ways to kill and destroy. NBC's Kevin Seitz went along with one Army unit into Crete on the hunt for unexploded bombs and filed this report by satellite phone.
Locked and loaded, the soldiers of the 122 Infantry roll out on patrol. When their Humvee stops next to this ordinary concrete block, they have no idea how dangerous it is until Specialist Michael Brissett sees something strange.
I look down and I see wires coming out. I was like, damn. You might want to move back a little further though, guys.
It's packed with enough plastic explosives to kill them all. They'll have to destroy the bomb, hopefully without releasing all of its explosive power. By shooting it, they've learned, it may burn rather than detonate. Sergeant Gilbert Neal takes aim with his M16.
Go for it.
It burns bright and hot for a few minutes, then...
There it went.
They think it's over, but 40 seconds later... a shower of concrete falls over a 200-foot area.
What kind of damage do you think that could have done if a convoy had been going by?
Well, you saw for yourself.
The Army calls them IEDs, for improvised explosive devices. Homemade bombs hidden in everything from dead animals and cardboard boxes to concrete blocks.
Commanders here say they get 80% of these roadside bombs before they blow, but their devious simplicity creates a climate of danger where almost no stone can be left unturned.
The soldiers spend the rest of the night turning over stones and shooting them, and taking aim at symbols they believe fuel the violence, photographs of Saddam Hussein, and banner tributes to those who have died attacking coalition forces.
They talk about so-and-so the martyr for killing Americans or whatever, like he's some hero or something. Now he's dead.
For the soldiers of the 122, the final thread of the evening folds like a cardboard box, which thankfully is exactly what it is. Kevin Seitz, NBC News, to Crete.
At the same time today, the State Department praised Saudi Arabia's growing efforts to fight terrorism on its own soil. Just yesterday, the Saudis say they stopped a potential car bomb attack in Riyadh. NBC's Richard Engel tonight has more on that country's crackdown on homegrown militants.
A rare look at Saudi Arabia's elite counterterrorism squad. 1,000 men training in Riyadh, practicing to storm buildings, stop cars, and rescue hostages. There have been real raids, too. Saudi forces have arrested 600 suspected al-Qaeda financiers, recruiters, and supporters in the last 6 months. In the past, the secretive Saudi government has blamed terrorism on outsiders. Now it has released new radio ads in the United States, suggesting the al-Qaeda problem in Saudi Arabia is deep and is being addressed.
In the last 6 months alone, we have killed more al-Qaeda militants than any other nation.
The crackdown began after the discovery here in May of a huge stash of guns, explosives, and communications equipment, and a string of suicide bombings in Riyadh that killed more than 30 people. But al-Qaeda appears determined to fight back, and earlier this month there was another big suicide bombing here. In addition to aggressive counterterrorism measures, the Saudi government has also vowed to confront the radical thinking that leads to terrorism. In the past, the government was accused of being soft on religious extremists, as long as they didn't encourage violence at home. Now it has turned to the nation's most respected clerics to help rein in the radicals. Since the latest bombing, 2 sheikhs have publicly repented on Saudi television for supporting al-Qaeda. Sheikh Ali al-Khudair renounced his edicts that non-Muslims in Saudi Arabia should be killed. But analysts like Mansour al-Nojaidan, himself a former extremist, say the changes are too late. Unfortunately, the majority of religious people in Saudi Arabia have an extremist ideology, he says. As for al-Qaeda, Western diplomats praised the government for taking the right steps to confront the organization, but warn the al-Qaeda subculture is deeply rooted here and say they'd be surprised if there are not more attacks. Richard Engel, NBC News, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
In other news tonight, there's a new twist in the case of a Chinese human rights advocate who was once imprisoned in China, then freed in 2001 with the help of the United States. Gao Zhan came to live and teach in this country. But today, she admitted in Virginia federal court that she'd been working with the Chinese government to illegally export high-tech equipment back to China, microprocessors, which cannot be sent there because of their potential military use. Gao faces up to 13 years in prison. Her husband also pleaded guilty to tax evasion. Up next, answering the nation's call to duty. One small community in Iowa, hundreds of sons, husbands, and fathers far away from home on this Thanksgiving. And later, fears of an especially dangerous flu season. What you should know about this year's flu vaccine. NBC News in depth tonight, the call-up. By now, it's well known the demands of a major military presence in Iraq and Afghanistan have forced the Pentagon to activate a number of Reserve and National Guard units around the country. One community in central Iowa with a strong tradition of service going back to World War II has been hit particularly hard and wonders where it will all end. Boone, Iowa has a population of 13,000 and a lot of its residents are a long way from home.
Right after we first left, it was like, oh my gosh, it's so real now. What am I going to do?
Carolyn Klaus and her 2 daughters are absent a husband and father, a member of the local National Guard called to active duty. In fact, 70% of every family in town has been affected by a call-up of the local guardsmen. More than 400 guardsmen away from home, some for extended assignments.
The worst part is my best friend's gone.
Joelle Eli's husband Rick has been gone since July, leaving her to care for her 2 children and a part-time job.
2, 1.
The Elis will spend the holidays without Dad. Joelle says it's hard, but she understands her husband's patriotism.
And I would never take that away from Rick, because it's important to him. I mean, his pride in this town is important to him.
Boone is a town missing policemen, firemen, store clerks, and laborers. City Supervisor Brent Trout wants to help, but he's just been deployed as well.
There's no doubt that people will be glad to have their loved ones home and to get things back to normal.
Boone has a long history of service, but some of the local vets have doubts about this war. World War II veteran and retired National Guard Colonel Bob Forney.
We would have had to commit some people, but I don't think we'd have had to commit so many. Maybe we wouldn't have got so many people hurt.
Korean War veteran Erling Larson.
How'd you feel about it going in?
Well, mixed opinion on it. Didn't think we were quite ready. Didn't think that the UN was in there.
Retired career Army officer Darwin Schuett has his doubts too.
What do you think?
I think we're in a heck of a mess.
Yeah. Did you think that when we got involved in the first place?
I was against it to begin with.
Though no one here is against the job the troops are doing. Carolyn Klaus just learned her husband's stay in Afghanistan has been extended.
There's days you want to call it a day, but you just keep, you wake up again, and we still wait and we're still proud.
Young Kayla Eli agrees.
Now that he's gone, I appreciate him.
You appreciate him more?
Boone, Iowa, a long way from Iraq and Afghanistan, and yet so close. This was an emotional day for Democratic presidential candidate Howard Dean and his family. A coffin containing the remains of a man likely to be Dean's brother was returned to the U.S. today, along with 3 other flag-draped coffins. Charles Dean disappeared almost 30 years ago while visiting Laos as a student. It will take months to make a positive identification, but Dean believes it is his brother because of the objects found with these remains. In a moment, the holiday travel crunch, and later, in search of the Jaguar, one man's crusade and why time is running out for him. You may have noticed this is one of the busiest travel days of the year and the busiest Thanksgiving getaway since the 9/11 attacks, according to the AAA Motor Club. But even with more than 36 million making their journeys today, it's been pretty smooth going on the major interstate highways. No major delays are reported at the nation's major airports as well, thanks in part to good weather and security lines that the government says are moving relatively quickly. Sunday, however, could be another story as those tens of millions begin to return home. Not a lifeline, and something else that returns every year around this time, the onset of the flu season. This year, however, the virus isn't wasting any time. It's hitting early, and it's quickly showing just how deadly it can be. Here's NBC's chief science correspondent, Robert Bazell.
Carrie Ann and Scott Williams had thought their 8-year-old son Joseph was only mildly ill when they took him to the hospital, but he deteriorated rapidly.
I lost my 8-year-old son yesterday to the flu.
The boy is one of 4 children in Colorado who have died this week from the flu. Another child in Oklahoma died.
It looks as though it could be a bad year.
In an average year, the flu kills 36,000, mostly older Americans. This year, the toll could be far higher.
Not very comfortable feeling. The virus is out there very early. It's earlier by nearly 2 months.
In the past few weeks, there has been a rapid climb in reports to the CDC from hospitals of people with flu-like illness compared to the same period last year.
Has he had the flu shot last year? Did he get it last year? No? Okay.
Already, clinics in several states are swamped with people seeking treatment for the flu or shots to prevent it.
Worried about my son, so I don't want to get out here and get his flu shot and mine.
The CDC recommends that everyone consider shots, but says they are especially important for people with underlying illnesses, anyone 50 and older, pregnant women, children 6 months to 2 years, and healthcare workers.
Is this her first flu shot? Yes. Okay.
But there is a problem. This year, the major virus has mutated slightly from the one used to prepare the vaccine 6 months ago. The vaccine is usually close to 100% effective, but such mutations in the past have weakened it.
We expect that there will be significant protection against the newer virus, but right now we don't know how good that protection will be.
But health officials point out that any amount of protection is better than none in response to what could be a deadly epidemic. Robert Bazell, NBC News, New York.
When we return, a jungle mission to save some of the world's largest cats.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw, brought to you in part by Walmart. Always low prices, always.
Who doesn't admire those among us who devote their lives to a noble cause, especially when their dedication is not for fame or fortune, but because the cause is just and important? Now, in a preview of tonight's National Geographic special on PBS, we bring you the story of one such man, his life with a legendary big cat, and the new urgency of his mission. Here's NBC's Fred Francis.
To Alan Rabinowitz, a real-life Indiana Jones, the quest to save the jaguar, the third biggest cat, became his holy grail the first time he heard them in the wild.
Ooh, ooh. And it was dark, and I was alone, and it hit me viscerally.
He has spent his life studying animals, says his childhood relationships with turtles and hamsters helped him overcome a debilitating stutter.
I cannot remember through my entire childhood ever being able to speak a complete sentence fluently except to animals.
A debt he says he could never fully repay, even as he developed into a top wildlife biologist and advocate for the endangered jaguar. Today he's creating a 5,000-mile corridor for the big cats to roam from Argentina to Mexico, a 2-decade crusade. He focuses on persuading governments and ranchers that jaguars are not dangerous, that they avoid man. His only close call was when one awoke early from a sedative.
Clawed me on my shoulder and then walked over my face, literally stepped on my face, walked over me and went off into the jungle.
A decade ago, Rabinowitz left the jungle full-time, married, and had 2 children. But a remarkable life in full bloom is now caught in the quicksand of incurable leukemia.
All I can think about is getting as much done as I can, saving as many animals, making this jaguar corridor happen while I can.
But what of his children? Rabinowitz is not torn between them and the animals that give his life purpose.
I see them laugh, I see them smile, and I think they're going to be okay. Now I have to get back to the business at hand and make the animals okay too.
Going back to the jungle, he's certain his children will know of his love for them and the animals. Fred Francis, NBC News, Mahopac, New York.
That's Nightly News for this Wednesday. I'm Tom Brokaw. Have a great Thanksgiving and take an extra moment to remember those in uniform in harm's way.